Greetings. In this session, dear friends, we'll be discussing the properties of the objects we draw through the Properties menu, and then we'll cover grouping and categorizing objects. Alright, let's start our work with the Properties section, so that we can understand the properties of an object or change its specific features. We use the Properties menu. The Properties menu has different sections, and to examine all of them more thoroughly, I'm going to draw a few objects. Here, a circle, a rectangle, an ellipse, and a line segment. Notice that I drew all of these on layer 0, so their color, line thickness, and whether the line is dashed or continuous, all of that is determined by this layer. Now, to be able to organize them into layers and put each of these objects on a separate layer, I'm going to create a few layers. For layer 1, I'll also set different colors so they're easily distinguishable. Layer 2. We've also created layer 3 and layer 4. We'll put each of these objects on a separate layer. Now, through the Properties menu, I can specify the color of each object using the first option. Right now, the By Layer option is selected, meaning the layer of each object determines what color that object will have. It's currently set to By Layer. If I change this color to yellow, for example, nothing happens. Why is that? Because AutoCAD doesn't know which object we want to change. So first, we need to select any object whose properties we want to view or modify. For example, I'll select the circle. As you can see here, it shows us that the color of this object, the one we drew, is red, and it says by layer, meaning its layer is red, which determines that this object is red. I can set it to by block. If it's a block, then the block itself determines what its color will be. Or I can assign a color to it myself. Black, yellow, purple, green. Any color I want, or I can use the index colors. You can see its color is changing. And if I click on the object, its color becomes green. Now I select it. The layer's color is red, but the object's own color is green. Why? Because it's no longer by layer. I set it myself so that its color is green. Now, if I want to draw another object, select it and put it back in layer 1. Its color is red. This object is also in layer 1, but its color is green. So by default, any object we draw takes its color from its own layer. Now in this example, this circle has taken its color from layer 1, which is red. Unless I specifically set it to not be by layer. I want to apply a different color to it myself. Now I'm setting this object's color back to by layer. By the way, we can also access more colors through the More Colors menu. This window should look familiar to you. You've seen it in other sections too. Index color, true color. I can change the colors. I can use any color I want from one of the color books. I can choose more specific colors for the object. Alright, I'll set it back and put it on by layer mode. The next option we have is line weight. As you can see from its icon, it shows us the thickness of the lines. As we mentioned in the layering lesson, we can specify the line weight for each layer in the Layers section. By default, it's set to default. We can change it from here. After that, any object we draw on this layer will take its line weight from the layer itself. Or we can leave it on default in a layer. Let's say we want all the line weights to be 0, for example. a specific object in this layer. Now, for instance, in layer 3, it can have a different line weight. We can go to the Properties section and set the line weight to by layer or by block. Default is 0, and then there are higher line weights as well. For example, I'll choose a line weight of 0.6 for this object. Okay, I'll press Escape to select it. Its line weight is 0.6, but we didn't see any change in the thickness of this line. Why? Because we need to enable the line weight option. We need to make sure the line weight box is checked from this menu. You see, once it's checked, this option becomes active for us here. Show or hide line weight. This lets us see the line weight. Let's click on it. Now the line thickness is visible to us. Why isn't this option always enabled by default? Because when we're drawing, the line thickness might mislead us, or when we're working with snaps, if thinner lines intersect with thicker ones, it could confuse us. Basically, line weight or line thickness is important for printing, but it doesn't really matter much while we're drafting. So, usually we do our drawings with line weight turned off. Then, when it's time to print, we turn on the line thickness. So, the line thickness is also set through the layer option. Let me apply it to this rectangle one more time. I'll set this to, say, a thickness of 1. Now it's really thick and it shows us because the line weight is turned on here. You can toggle it on and off. The next option we have is line type. We also had line types in the layers section. You can see the different modes. Continuous means, well, continuous lines, and then we could load other types. Dashed lines, dash dot lines, spaces, and so on. You can add different styles here to your work. You can also do this through the line type menu, so you can handle it here as well. I'll select this object. Again, we have the options by layer, by block, and continuous. Why don't I see the other options? Because they haven't been loaded yet. I click on Other and a menu opens up that has some filters. Up here, we can choose what type of line types it should show us. Show me all the available line types in this list. Only show me the ones I've used in this project, or show me certain line types. Show me the types of lines that have an external reference to a file outside of my current file, or the Invert option will reverse my filter. Now I only have 3 options. I click on Load and, for example, select the dash line type. Then I click OK. It loads here, I select it, and then I hit OK. I can delete it, set it as current, turn it into the current layer or current line type, and click on Show Detail to see the details of these line types. For now, I'll just click OK. Then I'll come back and explain this detail to you so it gets applied. Right now, it hasn't been applied to any object. It just showed up here. It was added to my list. I select the object and apply this to it. You can see that my line type has become dash or dashed line. Now I select it and go into Other again. I have a few options here. First, I can change its name. I can give it any name I want here, so I can recognize it more easily myself. I can add or write a description for it. Here, its own description is fine, and then I can change the global scale factor. For example, I can set it to half. Now if I click OK, it becomes finer. Its scale actually got smaller. Again, I'll set it to 0.2. You see, its dashed line gets even finer. Or if I make it bolder, if it was at 1 and I set it to 2, you can see it gets much bigger. Now I'll set this back to half. We'll need it for our next distribution. So that's it for our line type or line style. Now we have some other options here. If I open the Properties rollout, there's the Print section, which I'll explain to you fully in the session about plotting and printing. And then there's the Transparency section. To explain this more easily, let's move this object and place it on top of this one. As you can see, the blue line is placed on top of the green line. Let me change its color to red so we can see it better. Alright, now it's clear that the red line is on top of the green line. I'm going to increase its thickness. I'll set it to the largest available thickness so it's completely visible. Now I'll select it and increase its transparency. We can set a value between 0 and 90 here. I set it to 34, and you can see it's become more transparent. The green line, which wasn't visible behind it before, is now gradually becoming visible through this red line. Now I'll select it again and increase its transparency up to 90. You can see it's become very transparent and faint now. So, I can change the transparency of objects here. For example, if we have a glass object, we can really convey that look and feel while using the transparency effect. Alright, now I'll separate these objects so we can move on to our next distribution. And I'll set the line type of this one back to 0.6. I'll also increase the line type of the rectangle. Very good. I'll also change its color back to cyan. Now, here we have an option that's really useful. The Match Properties option has the shortcut key MA. So whether I click the Match Properties button, this command gets activated, and MatchProp is also the name of the command. Or if I hit Escape and then use the shortcut key MA and press Enter. Again, the same command will be activated for me. The first thing it asks me is to select the source object. I say, let this be the source object. The second thing, it says select your destination object or objects. I select this one, and then I press Enter. I exit the command. Did you notice that my destination objects, meaning the rectangle and the line, took on all the properties of my source object, which is this circle? What Match Properties does is it matches the properties of the objects, making them the same. You saw which properties it included. Their color became the same as the red circle, and their line thickness matched as well. And interestingly, they were placed on the same layer as the circle. The circle was on layer 1. Look, the rectangle is also on layer 1. The line was also placed on layer 1. It took all its properties from the circle. I'm pressing Ctrl+C. One more time, I want to use M plus Enter so that the properties of the line, rectangle, and circle become the same as this ellipse. That is, their color turns purple, the line style becomes dashed, and they move to the layer associated with this ellipse. I'm selecting my source object. I don't need to press Enter. It directly asks me to select your final objects. Since I can only have one source, there's no need for Enter. I say this one, and this one. Now I have to press Enter to indicate that I'm done. So now their color matches the ellipse. Their line style became dashed and they were placed in the layer related to the ellipse, which was layer 4. You can see that the line, rectangle, and circle are all in layer 4. I press Ctrl+C to go back. This command is really useful in practical projects. We definitely use it. For now, just keep its basics in mind here. Now, about these few items we just went over, let me also tell you about this list option. But first, I need to give you a few explanations. The options we reviewed here, including color, line type, line thickness, the Match Properties option, and now transparency, were a summary of all the options available in the Properties section. How can I access the other parts of the properties? I select an object and click this button. A complete list opens up that shows me all the details. How else can I access this list? Once the object is selected, I right-click. It doesn't make a difference. I don't even have to click directly on it. Wherever I click on the page, it's related to the object I've selected. I click on Properties. This list opens up for me right here. But the fastest way to access this properties list is by pressing Ctrl+1 on the keyboard. When we press Ctrl and 1, the properties window opens up instantly. What does it include? First, up here, it shows me a list of the selected objects and tells me what type each one is. Here, it tells me that it's an ellipse. Why do I say it shows their list? Because if I exit this and have two objects selected, here I have both the ellipse and the line selected. When I press Ctrl and 1, it tells me that two objects are selected. One is a line, and the other is an ellipse. I exit the command. I select the same ellipse again. I press Ctrl and 1 so we can go through the different options. The options related to general properties. It tells me what color it is. Well, we set its color to by layer, meaning the object's color is whatever color its layer is. We can also change it from right here. If we set it to not be by layer and make it red, it changes. It tells me which layer it's on. I can also change its layer from right here. I say, put it on layer 3. Layer 3 was this one, meaning its color was blue. Now, interestingly, when I said to put it on layer 3, it took its color from layer 3. You see, layer 3 is this color, and this object is the same color. This line of ours is also on layer 3. But its line type, or the type of line, wasn't taken from layer 3. In layer 3, we don't have a dashed line. We have a continuous line, like this object. Why did this happen? Well, we can see it right here in its properties. We told it to take its color from by layer. Whatever color the layer was, pick that one. But for the line type, we didn't set it to by layer. So it doesn't follow the layer or the line type of the layer. We told it to be dashed. Whether the layer is continuous or dotted, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, it shouldn't make a difference for you. You should always be dashed. Okay. Now, it's the same thing here. We can also set the line type to by layer. It becomes continuous because the layer's line type is continuous. We have the line type scale, which was 1, I can set it to 2. So the dashed line gets bigger. You see? Or I can set it to half. The dashed line gets smaller. Now I'll set it back to 1. I can set the line weight, the thickness of the line. The line got thicker. Now I'll set it to by layer here. Transparency can also be set to by layer. Or, for example, I can set it to 50. You see, it got a bit more transparent. So, I can either enter a value or set it to by layer. You see, there's no option for me to select. I have to manually type by layer. It follows the layer settings. In the geometry section, we have the geometric properties of the object. This includes the coordinates of every point on our object. Start X, start Y, start Z, end X, end Y, end Z. It shows us the center of the object and its coordinates. Minor radius, major radius. Now, for example, the major radius is 58 point something. I'll change it to 30. Okay, if I hit enter, the object changes. Or, for example, I set it to 60. I can also change its minor radius. It's 22. I set it to 25. Its minor radius has also gotten a bit bigger. I can calculate the ratio of the radii here, and there's a small calculator here too that we can use if we need to do any specific calculations. And by pressing the Enter key, we get the result. If I had clicked Apply here, that number would have been entered for me so I wouldn't have to type it manually. Start angle, end angle, and basically the various options we have, and one important option is the area. It specifies the area for me here and tells me what it is. Right now, the area of this ellipse is 4,712 point something. Okay, I'll close this now. If I want the quick details or a summary, I right-click and select Quick Properties. It opens up for me right there. The quick details show me the most useful features of this object: its color, its layer, its line type, and its major and minor radii. Now I'll move the ellipse back to layer 4. I select this line. I right-click on it, or anywhere on the screen. It doesn't matter. I'll right-click here. I select Properties. Again, I can see the same details here, with the difference that, for example, in the Geometry section, the lines we have don't have an area anymore. They're just lines. So here it tells us the angle of its placement and the length of the line, which is currently 90, and the other important details we've already reviewed together. Now imagine we select all these objects and open Properties. Or we could just select Properties. We can either click on Properties or press Ctrl+1. Ctrl+1 is better. I'll select them again. I'm pressing Ctrl+1. It tells me the quantity. It says that everything selected includes 4 items. So basically, it does the counting for us as well. Now, I want to see the details. It says we have 1 line, 1 ellipse, 1 circle, and 1 polyline, which, in this case, it recognizes the rectangle as a polyline. Then it tells you the color. It says it's different, it's variable for each object. From here, I can set them all to be red, all yellow, or all green, for example. Or I can set it so that the colors stay variable, just like they originally were. Same goes for their layers. It says the layers are variable. They're not all on the same layer. If you want, you can put them all on, say, layer 3. We can unify their layers, or just leave them as they are. Same goes for their line type. We say, okay, make them all dashed. We exit the command. Now they're all dashed. Now that they have a line type, they're clearly visible. I select them again. I press Ctrl+1. Set their line type to match this layer, and now that effect is gone. We need to say, don't use this layer's style. Make it dashed so it goes back to the previous state. We select them, Ctrl+1. The rest of the options work the same way, so we can change them too. So that wraps up the discussion about the properties or attributes of each object. Now I'm opening the file for that same hotel project so we can continue the topics together. Alright, we've entered our hotel project. We're on the 4th floor plan. We want to take a look at the group or grouping command together. The group command is used to categorize different objects, and by placing our various objects and drawings into a group, we can perform certain similar actions on the entire group instead of having to do them on each individual member. For example, what kind of things? Look, if we enter this room, in its living area we can see that the furniture objects are all separate from each other. Now, imagine we want to move these objects to the next room. Let me also delete these in this room. We don't have any furniture objects here. One thing I can do is select these and move them over here. Or I could copy them. Now, let me put them here. I select them. I copy them and place them here. Now, if I want to move these somewhere else, I have to select all of them again and move them. There's something else I can do. I press Ctrl+Z. I go back to the previous state. I select all of these. I click on the group option. Just like that, with one command, we've exited the selection mode. Now, when I move my mouse over this, each of the objects gets fully highlighted. You can see it, and there's also a box that appears around it, but it encompasses all the objects. Now I can select this once and move it. Or I can select them. Copy them. Or if I want to do something else with this group, for example, select them and scale them. You see, they all scale together. They get bigger or smaller as a group. Scaling or any editing changes are applied to the whole group. I can also do this using its shortcut key. The shortcut key is G. Look, this sofa, this table, and this other sofa. I select them. I press G. First, I type the word group and hit enter. Just like that, they become a group. Now I can move them around, and you can see the outline around them too. Now, let's say I want to know what's inside this group. It includes 3 other members, a table and 2 sofas. I double-click on it. It says that this is a group. It puts the number 3 in parentheses. That means we have 3 objects in this group. They're in the furniture layer, all the objects, and out of these 3 group members, 2 are block references, which are the 2 sofas, and we have 1 circle. Let's close this. Now, in this other group we created, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of furniture, plus 1 table. We click on it. Twice grouped, this group has 6 members, it's in the furniture layer, and it has 5 block references, which I'll explain about blocks in the next session. Which includes 5 sofas and 1 circle that's being used here as a table. So, I can also identify the components of the group this way. Now, I can assign a name to my group. Now, imagine I want to put these 3 sets into one group, which includes these 2 sofas and this coffee table in the middle. Instead of selecting them and pressing G to group them, I press G first. G-enter asks me, it says select the objects you want or change the name. Either I click on Name or I press N-enter. Now it says, write the name of the group. For example, I type it in. I write furniture and press enter. Now it says, select your objects. I select these 3 objects, press enter, and that's it. And now, interestingly, its properties also show up in the properties section, meaning, if I select it and press Ctrl+1, it tells me again that it's a group. It shows me the nature of my object here. It says this is a group, for example, it's not a block or a single object, and it contains these contents, and the other types of things we've already looked at together. So, both for changing the name of the group. Now, let's go somewhere else, for example, in one of the other plans. We want to put all these tables we have into one group, or maybe into several groups. I select these 3 tables. 2. Enter. These 3 tables are now in one group. You can see it. Now, we have various options here. One of them is Ungroup. So, I select my object and click on Ungroup. Each one is separated. Now, this is a separate object, and those 2 are also separate from each other. The next option we have is Group Edit. I select these 3. I group them. Now they've become a group. It's all set. I click on Group Edit. There are various commands here, and I can use these subcommands. The first one is Add Object. I can add an object to the group. Now, either I select it or I press and enter, and it asks me to select the object. I say, add this one too. I press enter, and it's done. Now, all 4 of these have become one object. I press Ctrl+C, so now these 3 are one object. This one still hasn't been added to them. Something different I can do is select this one. And select this one too. So, I've selected a group of 3 and a single object. Now, let's group them again. Now these 4 together have become a group, look. Notice that what I just did is very different from what I did in the previous step. Why? Because now you can see it has 2 base points. This one belongs to that object. Now I can move the group of 3, but all of them are still in one group. Basically, I have 2 nested groups. Once, I grouped these 3 objects together. Then I selected these three again. I put them together with this one in a single group. So if I select this whole set and ungroup it, it asks me a question. It says, in this object you have more than one group, and you can either accept or go to next. If you accept, it breaks down into the groups you have. One is this, and the other is that. So, it basically goes one step back. Now, if I select this again, if I group these, then select them and try to ungroup, it says you have more than one group. If I click on Next, it puts all of them into a single group. So keep in mind that you're either creating nested groups or you want to add an object to your group. In the scenario we looked at, in Edit Group, I select the whole group. I click on Edit Group. If I click on Add Object and select this, then press Enter to finish, the job is done. All of these are one group, meaning we don't have a nested group. The object we added was placed in the same initial group layer, and if I ungroup, there are 5 separate objects. Alright, now I select all of these again. I group them. We were reviewing the Edit Group option. Now I select my group again. I click on Edit Group. I can click on Remove Object. I want these two to be removed from the group. I press Enter, and now my group is set. There's an option below. Group selection can be on or off. I turn it off. If I deselect, these are individual objects, but if I turn it on, they become a group. So, it temporarily turns the group off and on. They haven't actually left the group, it's just not showing them to me. Here, with this option, group selection on or off. Alright, I'll turn it back on so I can see the group again. The last option in Group Edit is Rename, which lets us change the group's name. For example, I named it Table. Another option we have is Group Manager, where we can see the name of our group here. All the groups we've created in this file, the first one we named Furniture, if you remember, and the second one we named. I click on Table, and I can change its name. For example, Table Set, I can write a description for them. Now, whether in Persian or English. A set of 3 tables for 4 people, so that I can, for example, recognize what each group is for. Then I can use the Find Name option if I can't remember its name. This is for times when I don't have a group selected. Well, sometimes I forget what the name of this group was. I click on Group Manager. Here, for example, I have 100 groups. I can't choose from among these at all. Their names are weird and unfamiliar too. I click on Find Name. It asks, which object are you looking for so we can tell you which group it's in. We select it and it says, it's in the table group. I say, okay, so it was in the table group. Then it says, during this selection process, those that don't have a name, meaning you haven't named them yourself, also include the default groups. A1, A2, and A3 are related to those first 3 groups that we grouped, but at that time we didn't name them, and then there are other options that we reviewed together. Now I select this group. I can remove the group bounding box. When I deselect it, it's still a group, but it doesn't show me a bounding box around it, and if I grab and change any of these, then select it again. It's still a group, but its base points are located on the axis of each of these objects. If it has a bounding box, it calculates the average and puts a base point in the center of this bounding box or this border all around, which you can use for moving, copying, and so on. I'll ungroup this as well. Alright, now another very useful option we have here is the Select Similar option. Let's say I want to select every object of this table type and turn them into a group. I can't go and select them one by one, because as you can see, there could be thousands of tables in this busy floor plan we have. And actually, our plan here isn't even that crowded. It's just a small hotel. What I can do is select one of the objects. I right-click and choose Select Similar. Now, as you can see, in this plan and even in the next plan, it automatically detects them. It selects all the objects similar to this one for us. And now I can group all of them together. Okay. It turned all of these into a group. I'm pressing Ctrl+C to go back to the previous state. You see, when I hover over it, it gets highlighted. All of these have been grouped together. Let's do this one more time. Suppose we want to select all the doors. We select one sample. We click on Select Similar. It selected all the doors that were similar to each other. For example, it didn't select this double leaf door. This door was dashed. It didn't select it here. It didn't select this door because the bottom was closed. These doors have an open bottom. It selects objects that are similar to each other. For example, for this bathtub, Select Similar picked out the other bathtubs. Now I can group them or make any other changes I want to them. So Select Similar is a very important option for our work, and grouping is also one of the most important commands. I can select all these, for example, trees and plants, and group them together. Now they've all become one group. I can even do this with texts or my notes, as you can see. I can select these and group them. Now they've all become one group. And this way, I have a more organized and tidy set of objects. For example, right now I'm selecting these plants. I press Ctrl+1 and it shows me the count. Now, in this group, we have 21 objects, which are also blocks. They are block references. Or for example, in the same table example, I want to know how many tables I have here. I want to have a rough estimate, a count, so I grouped them. If they weren't grouped already. So now we know what we need to do. We select one of them. With Select Similar, all of them get selected. Okay, now let me select it. If I press Ctrl+1, it tells me that we have 110 tables in this group that are block type. So I went ahead and selected all of these, put them into one group. Now, for example, I can put all of them into a new layer. I can change the color of all of them or do whatever I want to this group. It will be applied to all similar objects in this plan. And now, for example, I don't have to go and edit each of these 110 tables one by one. Alright, now that we've covered these points, let me tell you another tip as well. Look, now I'm going to ungroup this. We said in the layering section, we can either select all the objects if we want to hide them, see which layer they're on, and then, for example, hide them. There's another way we can do this too. Let's say I want to select this object. I want to hide all the other objects, so that I only have this object. Maybe I want to edit it, or maybe I just want to hide this one object for now. What do? I select it, right-click. The Isolate section, which means isolating, will isolate this object from me. I click on it. All the other objects disappear. Only this one object remains. So, in crowded scenes, it temporarily clears up the area around us. I can come and work on this object, make any changes or edits I want, and then right-click, Isolate and Object Isolation. It takes a few seconds, and then all the objects reappear. Or the opposite. I want to select this object and hide it. Isolate Hide Objects. Only this one disappears. It's temporary, too. It's not deleted, it's just hidden, it's concealed. So, if I right-click anywhere on the screen, Isolate and Object Isolation takes a few seconds, and this object returns to its original state. Now, I can also work in combination. I just select one of these objects. Right-click, select Similar, and they all get selected. For example, in the Isolate Hide Object section, they all get hidden. Now, End Object Isolation works on both isolated objects and hidden or concealed objects. So now, even though it only says End Object Isolation, It also brings back the hidden ones when I click on it. It takes a few seconds, and the tables come back here. So, this option is also related to the use of select similar and hiding or isolating objects. So, in this session, we covered the topic of object properties from the Properties section, as well as the topic of grouping or groups. Both are very important topics. In my opinion, the most technical and practical tool is Match Properties. Be sure to use it. And just as a nice way to wrap up this session, I was supposed to explain the list option to you here as well. Look, we select a few objects. For example, this object and another object like this chair. I've selected 3 objects. Now I click on the list option. It shows me the properties of these objects. Now, since these are objects we've created ourselves, we might not see their properties clearly here. So look, a rectangle, an ellipse, a circle, and a line. I'm going to draw them here. I select these 4. I click on the list option. It shows me the list of these 4 objects, so I can see the order in which they were created. For example, it says the rectangle was created first, then the ellipse. So first I made the rectangle, then the ellipse, then the circle, and finally the line. Basically, it works the same as the F2 shortcut key that I introduced to you earlier. It shows you the drawing order of the objects, or possibly some other details. But the best thing to do is to select them. Press the Ctrl+1 key. Check their details from there, which is very complete and comprehensive. I hope you found this session useful as well. Until the next session, goodbye.